When reviewing the performance of myself and others, actually, what I've noticed is, for me particularly, what I found is that when I have a few concentrated investments, ones I really understand on a deep level, I monitor constantly, understand the business at a high level, I have insight there, or I believe I do, with a large margin of safety, assuming that they're relatively diversified amongst each other. I mean, 3 to 6 is more than enough. You've had various people, various famous investors sort of say this, where, you know, Charlie Munger sort of said this as well, that 3 to 6 is a good enough number. It doesn't, of course, you don't want to have one or two because, if two, it's not unlikely that two bad things or two bad judgments can be made it back to back, and that could wipe you out. But I feel like 3 to 6 for me has worked. Of course, it's not advice, but the reason I say that is because if we just put it to the other end, where let's say you have 30 to 60 positions, what Charlie Munger's always said as well is your 30th idea is never going to be as good as your first and second idea or your third idea. And additionally, how are you going to keep track of 60 positions all at such a granular, high level detail? How are you going to know the backlog of history behind the company, the past few years of reading the annual reports? How are you going to understand management at a very high level? How are you going to take the time to go into detailed interviews where possible about the management, understand them, really get behind their like childhood and their track record and what sort of set them apart? You really need to understand the granular details, in my opinion, to have success in this business. And I've just noticed it from my performance. I've had periods in the past where I've gone 20 positions, sort of. I've never really gone over that, but when I started to get to that 20 positions, I really didn't do as well. Just didn't do as well managing the portfolio, keeping on track of positions, didn't know at a granular enough level, as well as me just not recognizing where the real opportunities were, just because I was so bamboozled by all these different op- opportunities I had as well. But when I sort of scaled back and said, actually, I'm gonna go as concentrated as I can without being too concentrated where I could be wiped out if I just made a few mistakes back to back. And for me, what has worked is about that 3 to 6 range. Now, for me to only go in 3 positions might mean that I have, 20-30% in each position, and then I carry about a third cash or something like that. Um, but I'd have to have real conviction there, and there has to be a large margin of safety. Perhaps their business has more cash than debt, and the excess cash was something like half the market cap or something ridiculous like that, would be enough for me to sort of justify my confidence there in terms of the downside element. So that's the three. I'd say 6 is sort of where, for me, it's enough for me to manage. Of course, if you differ, then you might have a different number there. And if you're thinking of going into retire, you're going to retire in the next 2 years, and you want to save and live off that money, then I don't think 3 would ideally fit your goals. So it's all about the opportunity, the downside, the situation itself. But in general, I'm noticing my performance that actually the times where I've taken on a more scaled position and I've actually gone heavier into it because I had more conviction with the opportunities that I perform best on, just within my own investment journey. I know sort of various other super investors have mentioned this as well. Like Stanley Druckenmiller, he always says, take concentrated bets, swing at the fat pitches. He's always after the fat pitches. He's never after the skinny pitches, and that's something I've adopted myself going forwards, and I believe has done me really well. Particularly as I'm only filtering for the best 1 or 2 opportunities that year, and it really narrows it down to what you're looking for. That's all, and I do think there is something to take away from this. Of course, it's not advice, and just something to think about, and sort of just look back and reflect on your own performance if you are investing, and see how that's performed for you, and sort of think. I think this is also why writing a rationale might help as well, because you can sort of retrospectively look back and see, actually, was I confident in that judgment? Did I have a large degree of certainty in there? And just reflect on it. I'd seen another YouTuber, actually, I'm not going to name any names, but he'd sort of been showing his portfolio and sort of talking about and sort of highlighting his performance. And one of the first things I noticed instantly was actually that year, the positions based on the original entry size, of course, the positions that had done better had grown more, of course, but based on the original entry sizes, the positions which he'd entered it with larger entry sizes, meaning he had more conviction on, actually, when you looked at them as a whole, did much better. And if he just stuck to those ones with the much larger entry sizes, his performance would have been almost twice as good. It's something I've noticed and something that I've seen in my own performance historically. That's all.